Welcome back, everybody, to this episode of Make Your Point. I am your host, Adam Avin. We're kind of in a dull spot right now of things that are happening in the sports world. MLB, baseball, not my strong suit. We're in the midst of the Damian Lillard saga and what's going to happen with the Miami Heat, and obviously football season coming up. But there's a lot of rumors and things going around, and rumors circulate on Twitter. And I'm bringing on today someone who, if you live in South Florida, you know his Twitter handle, and you've seen him talk Panthers and Marlins and Dolphins and Heat every day as all four sports happen. So without further ado, my man, Dylan Friedland. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing awesome. Thanks for having me on.
You like that introduction?
Yeah,
that was a good introduction.
That was pretty good. I was questioning the dull moment, with baseball going on, but it was a good introduction.
I know you're a big baseball fan. For me, I'm starting to get into it, and like I said, partially due to your Twitter. I told you that I get invested, and it makes things a lot more interesting for me. I get to follow along and stuff. But yeah, at Miami Guy Dylan, follow Dylan on Twitter. I'll add in post. It's gonna show up right there. Your handle is gonna show up. But I wanted to have you on specifically because as someone who has grown up in South Florida. Obviously, we got the stuff. I got a Wade poster behind me. You got Panthers and a Tyreek and Marlins jersey behind you. As someone who grew up down here and I don't want to. Oh, a lot of jerseys, a lot of Panthers jerseys. I don't want to say has suffered through, some of the sports teams minus the Heat since we've grown up in our lifetime. The Dolphins consistently bad. Panthers, again, just made it to their first finals since, what was it, 97, 96?
96.
The Marlins, a couple World Series have basically missed the playoffs every year. So just kind of struggling through that and watching this year, while you're up at school, talking with a bunch of different people from all over the country, and you're watching what is potentially the greatest Miami/South Florida sports season in the history of ever. What was that like? And what did this kind of whole run of all these teams like the Heat and the Panthers, now the Marlins having their best year since, the most wins they've ever had before All-Star break and things like that. What is this? And Messi coming to InterMiami. What has all this meant to you watching this from afar and also getting up close as you've been following along with your teams your whole life?
Yeah. So, being up at school, honestly, probably the worst part about this entire thing, solely for the fact that I couldn't get to some of these incredible games.
That's why you use Twitter as an outlet too, right?
Exactly.
So that's how you reach the South Florida community. You got to get back on there and tell us your voice.
Exactly. But it has been nothing short of incredible. You take outside of the Heat, the Marlins in my lifetime have one playoff series win, and it came in the 2020 COVID bubble year. That was a 60-game season, which doesn't really count. That was also the only time they've ever made the playoffs in my life. The Dolphins, they still haven't won a playoff game during my lifetime. And the Panthers, before 1 year ago, hadn't won a playoff series in my lifetime, and now they've just made it to the finals for the first time in 26 years. You also add on University of Miami. I'm a big Hurricanes fan as well. They make the Final Four after making the Elite Eight. They do all that. The football team still sucks, but we don't have to talk about that.
Not to mention FAU making it to the Final Four. I don't think anyone expected that Cinderella story, but they end up going all the way. It's been crazy.
Absolutely incredible. And then InterMiami now obviously getting Messi, signing all these other guys. Yeah, they're the worst team in the league right now, but that should hopefully turn around. I assume it'll turn around with all these guys signing. So, yeah, it's just been incredible to see. So happy that it's happening. And us South Florida sports fans, we kind of just deserve it and need it.
Yeah, I feel like I saw a thing the other day. It was of ranking basketball attendances, NBA fan attendances in arenas, and it was the Heat are third over the past however many years, and I was like, oh, that's awesome because people constantly talk crap about Miami's not a real fan base. People aren't fans down in South Florida like they are up in Boston or in Philly or or in New York. So I think seeing all these teams have at least some success or getting some more national recognition over the past year or so has really brought the South Florida community together. And it's been really cool to see and to be a part of. And especially as those people who've watched our team so closely, even through the hard times, and now hopefully we're coming out on the other side of that. I was saying this before to you before we got on that I think the funniest part to me, even with this whole run of our teams having this excellence this year, is that it's resulted in no titles, which is just crazy to me when you're having legendary greatest players of all times come and sign in your city, teams having their best starts to seasons or having their best finishes to seasons, historic series upsets like coming back 3-1 against the Bruins with the Panthers, or the Heat being an 8 seed to reach the finals. It's like that results in no championship. So I just want to see one of our teams hoist the trophy, man. You know what I mean?
I traded it all for one championship. Even so, just if whatever happens with the Marlins or Dolphins, just give me one championship, please.
And I know you're probably wishing that it was the Panthers, that one champion. Like, you'd trade all of that for a Panthers Stanley Cup win.
Easily.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think you got to look at it and be like, no one expected you to be there in the first place, right? So you have kind of that, credibility with the team as well. Obviously I'm, watching you talk about the Panthers and seeing, the Panthers run this year. I got really into it, actually, and I've never been as much into hockey as I was this year, and it's really cool. But I don't know if you want to talk about the Panthers offseason at all, but obviously as an 8 seed, they go all the way. Is that something that they can replicate next year and maybe not start out as an 8 seed? Maybe they come in a little bit higher. They brought in some new pieces this year. What do you expect from the Panthers next year?
Yeah, so
I know we're a ways away, but
it's still, hey, I mean, offseason's still in like full swing of things. So I mean, it's good to talk. It's hard to talk about the Panthers, though, making the finals without talking about the fact that they made the playoffs on the second to last day of the season. They were just as close as missing the playoffs as they were to making the finals. I thought for the longest time that they were going to miss. I did not think they were a good team. So it's difficult. They really did, in my opinion, need to make some changes, because you don't want to take that risk of possibly missing the playoffs right after you make the final, because that would be just embarrassing as heck. The issue is now you've got guys that, because we made such a long run, you have top players like Aaron Ekblad and Brandon Montour who are now injured and are going to miss the first half of the season just because of this past run. So they had to do some things. Right. They went and signed a ton of defensemen to try and replace them. Do I think they'll work? Not exactly, but they're depth players. Depth to replace superstars is going to be difficult, but hopefully it works.
Right.
Then they go ahead, trade Anthony Duclair, bring in Evan Rodriguez to replace him in the top 6. That could work as well. They've made a bunch of moves. I honestly have no clue what's going to happen with them. I think it's going to be a struggle to start the season with some of the injuries, but then as the season goes along, I think we'll see them start to pick it up. I believe they'll make the playoffs again. What happens in the postseason is kind of just a wait to see at this point. I would honestly also like to see them make one more move. They have a little bit of cap space left, so if they go out and sign another forward, I wouldn't be upset with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think as you're talking about some of the depth that they got to sign to replace some players, this is where my basketball knowledge comes in, and people are talking about the Heat right now because they lost some of their depth. They lost Gabe and they lost Strus, and they signed some other pieces as they're waiting for the whole Damian Lillard situation to come in. So the Heat for me that's a team where, like, if they don't get Dame, I have full faith that they can go back and they can reach into the finals or make the playoffs. But if they do get Dame, I think they have as good of a chance, or a better shot to win the NBA Finals. So for the Panthers, you want those players back. Obviously, health plays a major role in a team's luck and chances of winning a championship in their respective sports. I mean, people all the time talk about Giannis going down, and then they talk about Jalen Brunson hurting his ankle, then Jason Tatum hurt his ankle, and then obviously the Nuggets had the perfect story for their championship, and obviously Jimmy rolled his ankle, but no one talks about that because we're the Heat. Yeah,
through it like the warrior he is.
Yeah, but it is. He played through it and didn't complain, right? So you got to give props to Jimmy and give props to the Heat for what they did. But also, the Panthers. It was genuinely exciting to watch. Their run last year. I've been going to school up in New York. It was really cool to hang around all my Boston friends who are crazy Bruins fans, and also Celtics fans, and getting to talk back and forth with them about about all our teams. But yeah, man, it was really cool to see those runs. And I mean, we're even seeing it right now with the Marlins and what they're doing, or at least what they did before they got to All-Star break. I know they've kind of tailed off a little bit over the past couple of games since they've come back to play. But the Marlins, I know there's a game happening right now. They are, it was really impressive what they did the first half of the season before All-Star break. It was the most wins they've ever had before All-Star break. Obviously, I don't think anyone expected them to kind of start off as hot as they had. Some players going up and down. Obviously, Jazz was injured for a long time. Then he came back, and they continued to play as hot with him when he came back right before the break for those couple weeks or so. So now, obviously, again, you pay a little bit more close attention to the Marlins than I do. But do you think that the Marlins can stay as hot as they were beforehand? And could they potentially be a sleeper team just like the Heat or the Panthers to make a run for a World Series?
I think they can. It's going to be tough because I don't think they have some of the star power that some of these other teams that they're in the race with have. But that's not to say they don't have some stars. They have Luis Ariz, who just struck out with a runner on third in the top of the ninth inning. But anyways, Luis Ariz has had a tremendous season, and he's clearly the reason, basically one of the reasons, I should say, that they are in this situation right now, batting close to 400. He's down to probably 378 now after the strikeout around there. But he's just this contact hitter that they need. For so long, the Marlins have just kind of been this team that struggles, with high strikeout numbers, can never get guys on, can never produce runs. But they've always been that super hot pitching team. This year, we've finally seen the bats start to come alive. You've seen guys like Luis Ariz, obviously. Brian De La Cruz has taken a major leap. Jesus Sanchez is another guy. Some of these guys who we kind of either wrote off or we thought were going to kind of be bench players have really started to prove that they can be more than just that. And that's probably the biggest reason why they are kind of doing this as well. The other reason is the bullpen has been a lot better than previous years. Starting pitching is obviously amazing, which is also kind of incredible talking about. Play at the plate, and John Birdie is out. Anyways,
I love the play-by-play. I love the play-by-play.
Yeah, it stays 2-2. Jorge Soler just hit a chopper back to the mound. That's unfortunate. Still 2 outs, but yeah. Anyways, I was talking about starting pitching. It's been incredible because Sandy Alcantara, Cy Young winner previously, hasn't been as good this year. He's still been decent, but he hasn't been the superstar that he was in previous years. But other guys are coming in and, backing him up. Jesus Luzardo, I think he had 129 strikeouts before the break. He had a rough start yesterday, I believe. And then Braxton Garrett's another guy who's also been phenomenal. You look at other guys, Yuri Perez. Wow. I mean, he's 20 years old and putting up video game numbers, basically. If he comes back up, I know he has the inning limit, but if he comes back up, he's another guy that just has that potential that he'll be someone who can be amazing, not just this year, but for the next 15 years to come. I'm incredibly excited about what he'll bring to the team and just overall. So I think there's lots of reasons why this team can stay hot. However, there's also some major flaws with this team. It's the lack of a serious catcher. Nick Fortes and Jacob Stallings aren't enough to really make a team a playoff team. They need to go get another catcher. Would also like to see them get another outfielder and a third baseman because Gene Segura is really not doing a ton. And they, another bullpen piece wouldn't be the worst option. Getting a right-handed pitcher in that bullpen would also be pretty good.
I mean, it seems like a real common theme with all of the Miami sports teams this year, or something that they've adopted. I know everyone talks about the Heat culture, but it's really like Miami culture, this next man up mentality. You're seeing a new guy for all these teams come in and make plays when it matters most. And I think that's why this run has been as spectacular as any run in the history of a year in sports for a city, because it's like, with 4 seconds left in a Panthers game, they're scoring a game-winning goal, or with the Heat game, Gabe Vincent, undrafted player. I know everyone kept talking about the undrafted players, but he comes in, hits a 3, helps us force overtime in that game 5, and the Heat are an 8 seed and they beat the 1 seed Bucks, right? So it's just people keep making these plays, and now we're seeing it with the Marlins too. Alcantara is not having his best pitching year, and now you're seeing a guy like Yuri Perez or some of the other people in the bullpen step up and play incredibly well. Again, it's been cool to follow. For me, though, I know I'm crazy Dolphin guy. I know I talked about that before, especially on here. For me, I'm already in football mode. After July 4th, after basketball ends,
training camp is coming on. Training camp is starting soon.
It's coming, and I genuinely cannot be more excited for what the Miami Dolphins are going to be able to do. Obviously, for those who don't remember, last year Tua goes down with 2 concussions during the year, and misses the latter half of the season. In a game against the Packers, gets that concussion, sits out the rest of the year. Dolphins get to the playoffs barely on a game-winning field goal against the Jets in Week 18, and then almost beat the Bills in Buffalo with Skylar Thompson, our third-string quarterback. Just a touchdown shy of maybe one of the biggest upsets in NFL postseason history. And now, as we look forward to next year, for me at least, I think my expectations are higher than ever. And it's because of the moves that they've made during the offseason. And I know that we're just getting to the offseason for some other leagues, but the NFL offseason feels like it goes on so much longer than everyone else. I don't know why, but it's like people start going everywhere and trades start happening. And I just can't wait. I can't wait for football season to start. But the moves that they've made this year have turned them into a contender, to a team or a dark horse contender, I should say, to a team that I genuinely believe can win the Super Bowl. And number one, it does bank on the fact that, Tua does need to be healthy. But if he stays healthy and the offense played like it did when he was healthy, the defense is going to be playing at as high a level as the offense was, if not better, right? They brought in Vic Fangio as defensive coordinator, who has had minor success as a head coach in the league, but who has anchored some of the best defenses ever in his tenure as a defensive coordinator in the NFL. They bring on David Long, who is one of the best edge rushers in the league, one of the most underrated edge rushers in the league, especially when guarding the run. They bring in Jalen Ramsey. They get Brandon Jones, Nick Needham, Emmanuel Ogbah, all back from injury. They bring in all these guys, and now they better re-sign Christian Wilkins and bring him back, and bring a guy like Javon Hall and make sure he stays, because this Dolphins defense has the potential to literally complete the phrase "defense wins championships," and that's with the Dolphins offense being as good as it is, and as good as Tua has the potential to be when he's on the field. I saw this stat the other day, or I heard this stat the other day that really, I think, puts things into perspective. You have 2 amazing weapons at wide receiver in Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, 2 of the fastest guys in the league, and it's not even close. When Tua wasn't playing in those 6 games that he didn't play, they had 0 touchdowns. Like, they weren't getting the targets, and they weren't getting the catches or the volume that they would when Tua was behind center. So you have these backup quarterbacks coming in, and if they're not looking for their stars or can't find your star receivers, then that's not going to be a good look for your team. And that's why they were so close to making it into the playoffs. And so it's important that Tua stays on the field and they build that chemistry up with Tyreek and with Jalen, and obviously with the weight that he's put on, the muscle he's put on. He should hopefully, knock on wood, stay healthy. The Dolphins can go all the way next year. That's my expectation of it. Tyreek Hill already has gone on his podcast that he expects to get 2,000 yards and a Super Bowl next year. So one can only hope. But, I know you've been caught up with the Panthers ending and now the baseball season going on. But do you have any expectations for the Dolphins next year, or for any specific players that you're looking to make a jump next year that can help the Dolphins turn into a Super Bowl contender?
Yeah. So, obviously, the whole will Tua stay healthy question. That's the biggest question surrounding the season. It's going to always be the question. But let's say he does stay healthy. Obviously, the defense, like you said, is incredible. I don't remember who told me it, but someone said the hardest defense that the Dolphins offense will face is the one they're going to be facing in practice. And honestly, kind of agree. It's going to be
not wrong at all.
The Vic Fangio, that's to me the biggest thing. I mean, I was screaming over there. We needed a better defensive coordinator.
Oh yeah, you can't run cover zero all the time. I mean, you can't run a full blitz every third down. That's why they were getting so close in the games.
I was pulling hairs out last year. Like, oh my goodness, I was just yelling for a new defensive coordinator. I'm like so excited for Vic Fangio and just really excited for just kind of what he's going to bring, the improvements that are going to be brought to the team. I hope that, you have someone like Bradley Chubb who maybe didn't have some of the success after we traded for him that we might have expected. I'm thinking that he's going to basically take that jump, go back to, what we would have expected for him this upcoming season. On the offense side, he's someone that, not many people talk about, but I love him because he was a former Hurricane, Braxton Berrios. I'm not expecting a ton from him, but I just love him, and I just want to see that. That's about it.
He's going to be a great slot threat on this team because that really allows you, if you have him and Chosen Anderson in the slot now, you can really put Tyreek and Jalen out wide, and a lot of their big plays came across when they were running all the way across, starting on the outside and running all the way across the middle. Some of the highlight plays of Jalen, against the Bills, throwing all the way across to one sideline, beating the defender down the field, or Tyreek against the Niners or against the Chargers, where he's going all the way down the right sideline to score, or against the Ravens too. So Tua is going to be able to really find that vertical threat. And Braxton Berrios isn't like, it's not like he's slow, but he could be a real piece that like, oh, now you can't double team Tyreek like they did last year. You can't double team Jalen Waddle. You can't send that extra nickel over because you need to make sure that all 4 or 5 receivers on the field are covered, because now you don't have Mike Gesicki, and you're probably not going to be using the tight end as much as you are. I don't see Durham Smythe being a lead guy. They drafted Elijah Higgins out of Stanford. He's a wide receiver, tight end. He's really tall, and he's a good blocker, so he could be a guy that's out there. But I don't know if McDaniel's going to put a rookie out on the field week 1. So it's going to be looking like a lot of receivers and obviously that running back work, and we don't know if Dalvin Cook's going to be in Miami either. I hope he is too. But, that's also something to look at too.
The other thing I think as well is, just in case Tua does go down, I really love the Mike White signing. South Florida kid as well, which always is awesome to see. But I think Mike White is someone who, you can definitely deal with. He can manage. He can survive if Tua goes down for a couple of games. I think we'll be obviously not as good with Tua, but I think we'll be able to just kind of manage a little bit better than we did last year, where we're not just going to basically be a shoo-in to lose every game. Really excited. I
had major respect for Teddy Bridgewater. Battling back from his injury, then he goes to New Orleans. Drew Brees goes down. I think it was 5 games. He goes 5-0 there. Like, he could play, but it was just like every time he came into the game for the Dolphins, something went wrong. Like, he was not good enough to keep that team afloat, which says something when you have so many good weapons around you. Obviously, the offensive line isn't what you want it to be, especially if you're a quarterback on that team. But like, it was like he'd come in, throw a pick 6, get injured, and go out, and then that was with Skylar Thompson. And it was that literally 3 times last year. Like, he could not stay healthy and play. So Mike White, I remember he took a big shot to the ribs, wanted to stay in the game when he was with the Jets last year. Continue to battle for that starting spot. So much so that they benched Zach Wilson, which, I mean, you don't always expect the team to do that. Just
smart decision.
Your second overall pick. Smart decision. Yeah, smart decision. I don't know what I mean, but he's given hell to Rodgers in practice right now. That's what they're saying.
Yeah.
So
sure.
Yeah, I know.
I'm not scared of Aaron Rodgers. Am I the only one that's just not scared of Aaron Rodgers?
I don't even know if that it's not. I'm not scared of Aaron Rodgers. It's that I'm not scared of the Jets.
Yes, that's also true.
I mean, I've said this before, and I'm firm on this. From a talent perspective, as a quarterback, I think could arguably be the most talented person to ever throw football. I think what he did in Green Bay for so long is ridiculous. With no first round draft picks to ever throw the ball to. Even though, I mean, obviously Devontae Adams, 2nd round draft pick, and has been the best wide receiver in the league or arguably over the past 5 or so years, or more. But yeah, I think Aaron Rodgers is unbelievable. Obviously last year wasn't a great year Do I think a lot of that was caused by the behind the scenes stuff of what could have potentially been going on in Green Bay? Yeah. But and the bad weapons around him. But I don't think like last year, like when you saw Aaron Rodgers lose to the Lions in week 18, which forced neither team to make the playoff, that to me was like, oh, he really doesn't care anymore about the Packers. Like he's really not trying, and he just didn't look good. And maybe he really just did need that change, and he's going to try and recreate some magic in New York. But I just don't have that faith in the Jets. My one rule in fantasy football is never draft a New York Jet because they will always disappoint you. Garrett Wilson is good, but I'm never going to draft the Jet. So, I mean, take with that what you will. That's just I'm a little biased, but I do think the Dolphins genuinely have the best defense in the division. I think the Jets, Dolphins, and Bills have offenses that can be really strong, and all have very good pieces on those offenses. Now that the Jets got Rodgers, and you have Breece Hall returning, and Garrett Wilson's turning into the guy, and they obviously signed some of his favorite people over there in New York, and the Bills are just going to be the Bills, and Josh Allen's good. And I think the Pats, we can agree, will be at the bottom. But the AFC East has the potential to be one of the best divisions in the league, if not the best.
That's the one thing that, scares me from, just saying the Dolphins are going to go out there and have an incredible regular season, is just seeing, how tough not only the division is, how tough the overall schedule is. Right. I think they're going to have a struggle time. I think they still make the playoffs, but I think they might struggle in the regular season. But honestly, with the schedule being so tough and with the division being so tough, if we do survive that and do make the playoffs, it's only going to prepare us for those playoffs even more, right, which would make me feel better about their possibilities of winning the Super Bowl.
Right. 100%. I think with the Heat, every time they lose a game, and that's a long season, 82 games in the playoffs, every time they lose a game, I get really upset because I always expect them to compete and to win, which is why this past regular season was so frustrating. With the Dolphins, I've just always expected them to lose, even though I still get very upset when they lose. But now it's kind of changed a little bit. And last year when Tua was in and they were playing good, I was really positive, and that positivity is going to carry on to next year. And I truly believe that. I'm hoping for it. Before we go here, again, I appreciate you for coming on, man. But before we go here, do you have any hot takes before, as the Marlins season continues? Want something about the Dolphins season? Anything? Any hot takes? And by the way, they don't even have to be about sports. Like, do you have a hot take about cereal? I just want to hear something. Sports is good
about cereal. I can go music.
Oh, okay.
I'm in a big time rush.
We got a music hot.
Yeah, I mean, I've been looking at Big Time Rush tickets because they're like my favorite band. So Big Time Rush is the most underrated band in the world. There we go. That's my hot take.
Of the world?
Yeah, most underrated band in the world.
Yeah. That's definitely a hot take, and I think that we could clip this. This will be the clip for social media. So Dylan Friedland says, at Miami Guy Dylan says, Big Time Rush is the most underrated band in the world.
Yes,
I love that. I love that clip. Great TV show too. Childhood TV show.
Exactly. Awesome. If we want a sports one, I got to go Owen Tippett. Owen Tippett of the Philadelphia Flyers finishes with over 80 points next season. That might make zero sense to you, but if anyone knows hockey,
not even a Panthers player.
He was a Panther. He was my favorite Panther.
He was a Panther. Okay. So I remember you tweeting about him.
Exactly. He was a ginger. He is a ginger, I should say. But he was a Panther, and so I chanted his name at every game that I went to. And yeah,
there you go.
I miss him.
All right, Owen Tippett and Big Time Rush. We'll end on that note. I love it. Anyways, hey, I appreciate you, man, for coming on this latest episode of Make Your Point. Everyone, if you made it this far, thank you for watching. Follow Make Your Point on Twitter and Instagram, and follow each of us. But with that being said, that's Dylan. I'm Adam. Thank you for watching.